Expect the unexpected with the Chicago Cubs and join me for an action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball where I review the 2023 season for the Chicago Cubs.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. As always, you're your number one host for all, number one source for all fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew Onay. You can find me on Twitter at Matthew_Onay. You can find us on all social media platforms, podcasting apps, and please, if you can, leave us a 5-star rating and review. It goes a long way. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the bell below and subscribe to the channel. You'll get all the alerts and notifications you'll need every time we drop a new episode. Also, please subscribe to us on Subtext for a more in-depth personalized experience of the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast. All right, guys, we got an action-packed episode for you today. And we're going to go over the Chicago Cubs season, which honestly did not expect them to do so well. Did not expect some of these assets on this team to be so productive for fantasy baseball. So we have a lot to talk about, a lot of things going on with them. And quite honestly, I think the first person that we need to talk about and the most relevant for what do we do with him next year, and that's Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger had the most unexpected season, hands down. If you really look at it, what he did last year was no indication that this season was going to happen anywhere near close to it. It was horrendous. 504 at bats, 70 runs, 27 doubles, three triples, 19 bombs, 68 ribs, 14 stolen bases, batted .210. You know, we all look at Cody Bellinger with, the gaze of yesteryears where, 2019 and 2018 and even 2017, those years where it was just magical, especially that 2019 season. Man, he pretty much won almost everybody their leagues that year. 558 at bats, 121 runs, 34 doubles, 3 triples, 47 bombs, 115 ribs, 15 stolen bases, and batted .305. Since that season, it's just been ugly and getting uglier. I understand too. In 2021, he was coming back from that shoulder injury, really didn't play a lot. And then 2022 was his first full season. And then, I get it. Maybe it takes a little bit more time to come back from that injury than we all expected. But honestly, it's been some time. I mean, we're going into the 2024, this 2023 season, right? It's been 4 years. There was no indication that things were just going to be, there was going to be brighter days with Cody Bellinger, essentially. So ultimately, you got to look at him and you got to, kind of evaluate, is this repeatable for Cody Bellinger? Is this something that he's going to do again? And I think it's possible. I think that we might even see a little bit better next year. Honestly, second year on this team, if he is staying with them, I'm not 100% sure on his contract situation, but I believe he'll return to the Cubs, especially after the season he had. And I believe the home runs might even go up. In all honesty, I'm not going to draft him at his ceiling. I probably will draft him as a top 20 to 25 outfielder. I haven't finished my outfielder rankings 100% yet. Still tinkering before I can say, hey, they're done. But I like Cody Bellinger for this year coming up. I like the possibilities. I like where this thing is going with Cody Bellinger, and it makes him an asset again. Now, it all could be fool's gold, and he got it together for 1 year so he can get paid, and then it all goes down the toilet again. We shall see. And that is why I'm not sure where I'm ranking him. I'm not sure how it is. I have to do a lot of deep diving and see exactly where he's going to be. But for now, in October, where I'm thinking about next year's baseball season, Cody Bellinger interests me. And I'll have more of an in-depth perspective on Cody Bellinger as we get closer to draft season. But until then, let's hold our breath and wait for what Dom and I cook up. Well, let's move on here. Let's talk about Dansby Swanson. Dansby. Honestly, I gave this dude so much hate. I swear to God, if Haterade was a real product, I would have been their sponsor times 50,000. Their number one sponsor, hands down. There's no question, because I threw so much shade this dude's way. And honestly, deservingly so. And here's why. Everybody was chasing last year's season, right? Last year's season was phenomenal. 640 at bats, 99 runs, 32 doubles, a triple, 25 bombs, 96 ribs, 18 stolen bases, and batted 277. This year, new team, one rule, boom. Part of my decision as to what it was going on, as to why I was throwing so much shade. 565 at bats, 81 runs, not too shabby. 25 doubles, not too shabby. 3 triples, not too shabby. 22 home runs, not too shabby. 80 ribbies, not too shabby. Now, the batting average, 244. OPS, 744, but not that far off from his 776. I still don't think he's super elite. I'm going to be honest. I don't think he's this world beater, amazing. Oh my God. Dansby Swanson is this top 5, top 7 shortstop. Shortstop is one of the most deepest positions in fantasy baseball, hands down. And that is why I was saying, I threw so much shade on this dude. It's not that he's not good. It's not that I think he's going to be absolutely putrid. It's more of, I don't think for fantasy, he's going to pay off for where a lot of people wanted to draft him. And now people are going to look at him in his second year with Chicago and expect him to kind of get back to the 22 year, hope for more upside, but I just don't see it. I don't see him doing more than what he did this year, which isn't atrocious. Again, it's not a bad season. It's just not what everybody really was, buying into the hype, in my opinion. And I just heard a lot of things from a lot of people I talked about in the industry, or just the general feeling of Dansby Swanson going into the year. And honestly, just wasn't my cup of tea. Now, he was great beginning of the year. He was great down the stretch at certain aspects, but Dansby Swanson did not put a full season that really blew me away. He was just average. And when you look at, names that are shortstops, I really want to drive this home, that I'm not like saying, hey, this dude is horrendous, because that's nowhere, shape, or form. But like, you have names like, obviously, we're going to say, this is it right here. This is going to be your top 10 for a shortstop, right? Bobby Witt Jr., Trey Turner, Mookie Betts, if you're playing in Yahoo, Corey Seager, Ellie De La Cruz, Gunnar Henderson, O'Neill Cruz, Francisco Lindor, Bogarts, Bo Bichette, Matt McLean. There's names all over and up and down where you're just like, okay, where does Dansby Swanson fall? And I think 11, 12 shortstop and 12-man league is where he's going to be the most relevant. He's not my top 10 shortstop. He's not like, there's even a big drop off. There's a lot of guys I'd take, where after him that, like, okay, if I wait and I got a better player that's going to perform at a different position, I will probably pass on Dansby Swanson and then take one of these lower names and take a shot, because I like guys lower. I think Tim Anderson might bounce back. I feel, you look at CJ Abrams, maybe he'll build off this year. There's a lot of names out there that kind of intrigue me more than Dansby Swanson, that are later and above him, that I either am going to take over him, or I'm going to take guys after him versus settling at Dansby Swanson. And this argument can be completely null and void come draft season once we see ADP. So ultimately, Dansby Swanson is another guy that's going to leave me surprised and pondering where he's actually going to be, and how I'm going to be talking about him come draft season, based off of, ADP and what that team's going to look like, and ultimately too, how he starts performing in spring training will either give me a rise or a lower. But until then, we shall see. We have a bunch of exciting names on this list. Honestly, I am very excited to talk about the young dudes. I'm very excited to talk about, second year players on this team, and some exciting pitching names. But until then, I have somebody great to talk about. Everyone should be empowered to take care of themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind, so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure that you have the medication in hand. Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from online evaluations to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life saving antibiotics with Jace Medical Plus and an additional $20 off by using the code locked on at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JESE medical.com. Promo code locked on. All right. And we're back here. And another name that was really interesting this year, and that's Nico Hoerner. Nico kind of put together a decent season. And by decent, I mean way better than I thought he was going to be. I really like the numbers as a total, especially those stolen base numbers. And I see a bright future for this kid. 619 at bats, 98 runs, 27 doubles, 4 triples, 9 bombs, 68 ribs, 43 stolen bases, 49 walks to 83 strikeouts, batted 288, 83. I love the walk to strikeout ratio. That's phenomenal. Obviously, you got to love the stolen bases and the runs. And quite honestly, with Bellinger hopefully staying in this lineup, with say Suzuki, the emergence of Morel, Pete Crow Armstrong, possibly even Matt Mervis, all guys I'm going to talk about soon. This team could do a lot with Nico Hoerner. Nico Hoerner could benefit in the runs category, maybe get the ribbies numbers up to about the 75, 80 range. The stolen bases, I think, are legitimate. I think that that's just going to be a thing. Now, stolen bases a couple years ago. Sorry, my daughter is not a happy camper out there. But I feel like with stolen bases being up as a whole, it kind of dilutes where his value is in total. But at the same time, he's not exactly just a steals contributor. He's contributing in batting average. He's contributing especially in points leagues for the walk to strikeouts. He's contributing especially because of the doubles in the points leagues as well. And I just think, the dude is just going to get the job done for you, especially at, second base and shortstop. Shortstop, he kind of falls lower in the rankings, in my opinion. But at second base, that is a pretty decent, spot for him. I want to see where I actually have Hoerner right now. So I actually have him at like 7 at second base, which is actually really nice. Of course you have the top end names like, Simeon, Albies, Altuve in India and Cattell and Estrada and things like that. But, Hoerner falls in as, a nice bright spot when there starts to be a drop off, but there's a lot of upside at second base. So it's a matter of what you're willing to pay for Hoerner and what exactly you feel is his upside moving forward with this Cubs team. So Hoerner is a very interesting person for next year as well. Somebody I'm excited to kind of get my teeth dug into, really do a deep dive into him. And honestly, I really just can't wait for ADP. A lot of these conversations are going to be based off of, who is a value, who's not right now until ADP comes out and we're all start drafting again. I hate and love this time of the year because, okay, the season's over. I'm upset, but I'm excited for the anticipation of the new season. And like players like him get me real excited to see exactly whether he's going to be a value or, somebody that I'm going to have to avoid just based off of where they're going. But we shall see. Let's hope the hype doesn't go too far. Let's hope people forget about him a little bit so we can get him at a value. Let's move on here. Let's talk about Seiya Suzuki. Seiya had a great season, like really great season, especially honestly, that last month, like, man, I had him in a lot of leagues. I picked him off the waiver wire, and he really helped push me through the playoffs and, really got it done for me. I was thoroughly enjoying being a Suzuki owner come the end of the season. He had 7 home runs through September, which was phenomenal. He batted 370. He had 26 RBIs. He had 19 runs. He really did his thing. The only thing he really didn't, even in points leagues, he had the walks, 13 to 22 strikeouts, 13 walks to 22 strikeouts. He had 2 triples, 9 doubles. Like points leagues, he was also an all-star in that aspect. Now, you look at his numbers on the year as a whole, and it's like, okay, like, hey, man, you had a good season, but like left me kind of wanting more in certain categories. Like runs, he had 75. Doubles were phenomenal, 31, 6 triples, another great stat. Home runs, I really thought he was going to do more this year. I feel like maybe next year he takes that step forward and we start seeing more power out of this dude because I think it's legitimate. I think it's there. 74 ribs. Again, as this team gets better and he possibly gets, moved around in the lineup a little bit, he might have more ribbies opportunities. Stolen bases, I mean, last year 9, this year 6. I mean, hey, if he gets me 10, I'm really happy with that. The walk to strikeout numbers on the total year were a little rough, 59 to 130, not atrocious. Almost 60, almost 50%, but I'd like to see a little bit better because I think he's got it in him. And then, the batting average on the year was really nice at 285. Like Suzuki definitely had a nice season, and I think next year he might take the step forward. He's somebody I'm probably going to be targeting. Let me see where I have him preliminary. I know I didn't want to talk about my outfield rankings, but kind of want to see how I was feeling about him like a couple weeks ago, when the season ended. So right now, funny enough, I have him at 19. I feel like I'm going to drop him a tad, but I feel like 19, 25 range, I think is a fair spot for Suzuki. I feel like, honestly, he'd be your outfielder too in certain circumstances. I definitely would not feel comfortable walking away with him as my 1, but a 2 would be definitely solid. So Suzuki is going to be very interesting in that matter. And man, I just think next year is going to be very bright for him. I'm not a Cubs fan whatsoever, but I mean, I guess I like a lot of players this year, and a lot of players really had a lot of surprising seasons. He didn't. I really thought he was going to translate this year, and because of everything that he had inside of him and all his previous experience overseas. So Suzuki is somebody I think is going to seriously dominate this year. But let's move on. Let's talk about everybody's favorite player, I feel, across the industry and honestly across, fantasy baseball, period. Christopher Morel. He's a really exciting player. Like it's really nice to see that the Cubs got somebody really electric in there. Has center field and second base eligibility. And if I check YouTube, probably about 17 other positions, including like manager and catcher. I'm joking, obviously, but hey, Morel had a pretty good season in his 388 at bats, 62 runs, 17 doubles, 3 triples, 26 bombs, 70 ribs, 6 stolen bases, batted 247. That was the only thing that really left me like desiring more from him. But I mean, ultimately, the home run numbers are stellar. In the minors before he got the call, he was batting about 330. 2022 he hit 306. 2019 hit 284. So like the kid has batting average in him. And I think he's more of that new age batting average guy because his walks to strikeout ratios are really atrocious. 30%, I believe, if I did the math, which I'm not going to do on live on air. But ultimately, Morel has a lot of upside in this regards. And if he can get that batting average even to 275 and play a full season, man, I can't wait to see what those year-end numbers are going to be. That power is just legit. And if that lineup just keeps growing and getting better with the addition of him and Crow, man, it's going to be so much fun. Chicago, you really have a lot of exciting tools at your disposal if everything goes right. And yeah, he's one of them. He's definitely somebody I'm going to be checking and seeing where I'm going to add him. I'm going to have to raise him, I think, in a couple of spots as well, because man, it's just, you look at it and it's like, oh, he kind of cooled off a little bit at some point during the season, but then kind of picked it back up. And, it's just him trying to adjust, and you kind of got to, write off a little bit of the bad production just based off of the fact he's really getting, his second real lick after not really making the team in the beginning of the year. But it seems like, he's here to stay this time around. As long as he has everyday playing time, Christopher Morel is going to be very valuable for fantasy baseball come next year. It's going to be fun. It's going to be very fun next year for him. And I'm really excited to rank him and really, again, get my teeth sunk into him as well. And before we talk about 2 young dudes that's left that I've probably mentioned earlier in this podcast and some pitching, I have one last sponsor to talk about. The MLB playoffs are here, which means the clock is ticking on your chance to win 100 times payout on daily fantasy baseball. Baseball has never been more exciting than it is now with studs like Acuna, Betts, and Ohtani. Pick the over-under for these stars like home runs, hits, strikeouts, and more for 100 times payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right and you can win big. Entries can be made in under a minute, so get those last-minute bets in. Use the promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Plus, Dom and I love Sleeper not only for its easy-to-use fantasy platform, but they also have the fastest and most accurate alerts. So download that app now and, take the advantage on the rest of your league. Check out Sleeper today. Terms and conditions may apply. All right. We're down in the nitty gritty. We're done with all the little things I have to add into the middle of this. And we're going to talk about Matt Mervis. Matt Mervis, I love this dude. I can't say I love what he did when he got the shot this year, but I like his upside. Okay. Let's put it that way. He played about 27 games, 90 at bats this year. This is in the bigs. 8 runs, 2 doubles, 3 bombs, 11 ribs, 8 walks to 32 strikeouts, and batted 167. Ugly numbers in the batting average, strikeout, walk ratio stuff, but some bright spots. 3 home runs, I like that. 2 doubles, like that. He was able to do something. He had a very small sample size. What are you going to do in 27 games? What are you really going to do? Played about a little under a month of baseball in the bigs. Whereas, you look at this kid as a whole, and you look at his, his minor league track history, and you're like, okay, this is what, I think next year could bring for him. There's no guarantee, but this is what it could bring for him. It's all about the upside in the offseason, right? 362 at bats in the minors last year, 77 runs, 23 doubles, a triple, 22 bombs, 78 ribs, 2 stolen bases, 67 walks to 100 strikeouts. Great numbers right there, and batted 282. The year before, he batted 309. And, about the same kind of walk to strikeouts, 50 walks to 107 strikeouts. So he does get the job done. And in 2022, he had 36 home runs across A+, AA, and AAA. This year was all AAA. So the kid has talent. And quite honestly, I think he's somebody that could have a lot of value for next year. But it depends if he makes that opening day roster, if they were just trying to check him out, or if he does make that opening day roster, how long does it take for him to get it going? It could be a slow start for him, or it could be a hot start. We shall see. Spring training is going to be a big factor in how he's going to be either fly up draft boards or plummet on down. Matt Mervis is going to be probably the most volatile in rankings for fantasy season this year. And I can't wait to see what he does in spring training. It's going to be fun seeing this prospect. But let's move on. Let's talk about Pete Crow Armstrong. Pete Crow, if you guys were listening during the season and, hearing how much I like this kid, you'll understand my excitement behind him. Now, he only played about 13 games, and he didn't do much with his opportunity, quite honestly. 14 at-bats, 3 runs, no doubles, no triples, no bombs, a rib, 2 stolen bases. Got caught stealing twice, too, I might add. 3 walks to 7 strikeouts, 0 batting average. Hey, man, you know what? I don't know exactly what was going on. I don't really get the Cub games out here. But what I can say is not the greatest first impression. But here is kind of what I'm feeling here. You look at this kid's minor league stats this year. I apologize about my kid in the back. 438 at-bats in the minors, 98 runs, 26 doubles, 7 triples, 20 bombs, 82 ribs, 37 stolen bases. He loves to get caught stealing, apparently. 10 times he was caught in the minors last year. 46 walks to 129 strikeouts, batted about 283. Seriously, the kid I believe, has power. He clearly has speed. And I think the batting average is going to figure itself out. But he's a new age batting average guy. So things just kind of got to go right. He's somebody that, obviously based off of what spring training brings, and we see what he's doing. If he makes the opening day roster, if, all goes well, Pete Crow Armstrong could be somebody we're drafting. But I don't know how high, but maybe somebody we're talking about, hey, last pick, or hey, maybe want to target him around this round. We'll see what kind of it brings for Pete Crow Armstrong. I think the ceiling potential is limitless. And, certainly you'll hear as we talk about in the offseason how I'm probably going to be a lot I'm going to be very on board with Pete Crow Armstrong just based off of the upside. It's going to be one of probably about 7 or 8 prospects I'm excited for this season. A lot came up this year and kind of translated, and it's been very exciting for the influx of bats in it as a whole this year. And it's a really exciting time for baseball. I really am excited for this, young talent that's been infused into this league. And I really hope Pete Crow can join the rest of the class and really take that step forward next year, because he could be a special talent. But let's move on. Let's talk about Justin Steele. I'm going to be honest. If anybody anywhere told you that Justin Steele was going to do what he did this season, call them a flat out liar. Nobody saw this coming. Okay. Justin Steele had a phenomenal season. Okay. Ooh, it's hard to even fathom it. 173 innings pitched, 176 strikeouts, a 3.06 ERA. He also threw in 16 wins, and he had a 1.17 whip. And here's the scariest part: is FIP, fielding independent pitching, which is a predictive stat. If, for instance, he had an average defense behind him, this is what his ERA would actually be. It's a 3.02 to his 3.06, which tells you he literally pitched to his upside, to his actual grade. He did his thing. Justin Steele had a great season. Now, here's the thing. I don't know how much of this is real. Last year, he also had a good season. 119 innings pitched, 126 strikeouts. He had a 3.18 ERA. And again, the FIP was right on par at a 3.20. The whip was significantly higher. I think he figured that out this year. Now, here's how I'm approaching Justin Steele. I'm not drafting him as a top 10 pitcher. There's no way I'm walking away with him, even as a top 12, as my number 1 pitcher. I don't feel comfortable doing it. I'm going to be honest. This is my preference. You may feel differently, right? I'm here to give you advice, and then you take that advice and you do what you want with it, right? So Justin Steele, ultimately, I'd feel really great if I walked away with him as a late 2, which I don't think is going to happen in draft season. I feel like he's going to be overinflated. I feel like he's going to be drafted super high, and then he might disappoint. I'm probably going to put him, if he is being drafted, as a 1 or ace. I might put him on my bust list. I'm going to draft him where I feel he should go. Probably about 18 to 24 starting pitcher. But if he's getting drafted as a top 12, top 15 pitcher, I'm probably going to say he's a bust, because I want to just see him do it again. Not that I don't think he's got it. I think, honestly, between the FIP for the 2 years matching and aligning with his ERA, to be honest, it could be real. It could be this. But I still want to see it, because he came at it almost left field. And I'm not buying it yet. I can't buy into it. And, I don't know why. Maybe he's just somebody that I overlook. I can't really put it on. I mean, quite honestly, up until probably about this year, even with like Kevin Gausman, I kind of, write him off sometimes too. And I forget how good he is. And this could be Justin Steele, but this will be the last year I do that with Justin Steele. And hey, maybe I just don't get him. I rather him blow up and go against me and have a great season against me versus him having a disastrous year on my team as my 1. And then I'm stuck holding the bag. So that's pretty just my feelings on Justin Steele. But let's move on. Let's talk about Kyle Hendricks. Kyle Hendricks, somebody I'm looking at and I go, okay, this is Dom's dude, in all honesty. Like, for me, Hendricks, just, how do I put this, is not my bag, if you know what I mean. That Austin Powers is not my bag, man. But you know what? Ultimately, he didn't have a bad season. 137 strikeouts, 93 Ks, a 3.74 ERA, and a 1.2 whip. And his FIP was pretty much on par. Now, the thing is, the dude is 33 years old. Last 2 years really haven't been wonderful, at a 4.8 ERA and a 4.77 ERA. And the FIP was literally on par, pretty damn close to, what he was putting out. So, I don't like that. I also don't like the fact that he's really just not a K per nine guy either. So the Ks aren't really an upside thing, which he's really never been. Honestly, he's never been that K per nine guy. So I guess you know what you're getting with Kyle Hendricks. I don't foresee him being somebody that we're talking about in a higher aspect of top 30, top 40, possibly even top 50. Like he's not, I don't think going to be there for me for that. Like a good pitcher 6 or 7 in like a 12 or 14 man league. That's where Kyle Hendricks probably should be for you. But even then, I might take other guys over him. So we shall see on Kyle Hendricks. I'm not going to waste too much time on him. He's not one most exciting, and two, just I don't feel going to be somebody that's going to be super prevalent come draft season. Let's get this last guy in. Javier Assad. Interesting name here. Did his thing, though. I got to say. He had 109 innings pitched, 94 strikeouts, a 3.05 ERA, a 1.226 whip. The only thing is that ERA to his FIP, significantly different. It's an ERA, it's a 1 earned run and a quarter higher than it is a 4.29 to his 3.05 ERA. And it was the same thing last year. So I don't think this is really real. I don't know where I'm going to draft him or rank him yet, but ultimately, I wouldn't buy the hype. Depends on where he's going in ADP, is depending on whether he's actually going to be on my teams come next year, because he may be worth the shot in deeper leagues. We shall see. But Assad, not the most guy I'm really craving for on my teams going into next year. But that's all for this for me today. At least I want to thank you all for hanging in there, checking us out. Please stay with us throughout the whole offseason so that we get you ready for that 2024 season. And if you can, leave us a review on Apple and a 5-star review on there. I'd really appreciate it. But until next time, guys, peace.